trying to build a college football program in Conway, South Carolina. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. All right, as promised, the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Tim Beck, hopping on. He puts a bow on spring practice, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, discusses that, talks about the battle for quarterback, and there seems to be a four-way battle for that. We have an incumbent-ish along with some transfers. We talk about trying to build a program in the transfer portal era. It is not very easy. Does talk about expectations for 2025, and he talks about how much fun it was just to be a fan at that baseball game the other night. He saw Coastal Carolina defeat Clemson 5-3. He is the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. He is Tim Beck, and he is Locked On Sunbelt. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. As promised, and as per usual, he's a man of his word. We bring in the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. He is Tim Beck, heading into year number 3. Always generous with his time. Coach, how did spring practice go? Fill us in.
Yeah, great. I mean, we had a great spring. Obviously, we got new coaches, new staff, and a lot of new players like everybody else. So I was really pleased. I think our players and coaches bonded well. We picked up the things that we wanted to teach them. We worked on, just football again, right? Technique, fundamental in this crazy world of portals and transfers and NIL and rev share and this, that, and the other. It was really good to be on the grass and just play football.
And so it feels like we're starting from square one, heading into 2025. Does that make it more fun for you? Because you're kind of building from here. We get to start from A and see where we end up at the end of spring, heading into fall, and then we build from there as well.
A little bit, it's I say refreshing, rejuvenating might be the word.
Sure.
To start new, right? You got a bunch of new faces, new coaches, new players, new schemes. And so with that being said, I'm learning, right? I'm learning people, I'm learning our players, I'm learning schemes. So it kind of rejuvenates you a little bit, right? And but it was good. Did a lot of self-assessment at the end of the year. Where were things we needed to improve on? How do we get better? What are the things that needed to be changed? Being a first-year head coach, you learn as you go. And certainly in the nature of college football, the way that it is, it's an every month learning experience because new rules, new things take place, new players, and everything that you've learned your whole life in trying to build and plan a program, you can kind of throw most of it out the window right now, And so, it's definitely stuff that a lot of first-year guys, I'm sure, are going through. And you live and learn. You make some mistakes, but you got to be able to adjust. You got to realize you've made them. You got to realize that you need to make certain changes and then, be able to do that.
All right, so introduce us. Who you got? New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinators?
Yeah, we did. Drew Hollingshead is our new offensive coordinator. And he brought in a couple of staff guys with him and Tyrone Carrier at receivers and Andre Crenshaw at running back. So a lot of our skill is new. And then defensively, we hired Jeremiah Johnson from Louisiana Tech. And he brought most of the defensive staff with him. And so Ja'Cory Greer, defensive line, and Cortez Carter at linebackers. Brought those two. CJ Cox is a safety a safeties coach that we were able to get from UAB, but had coach with Coach JJ at Kent State. And then Keelan Brookins is corner. So bunch of new guys, right? Bunch of new staff, new systems. So, but it went well. I think our players responded well, for sure.
So you're an offensive guy. So are we running Tim Beck schemes or are we running Drew's schemes?
Yeah, more Drew.
Or a combination thereof.
No, it's just, it's always one of those hard things. And I talked about it before, the previous, giving them leeway and to do things. And then sometimes you stick your nose in where it shouldn't. And again, it's all part of the learning curve. And
sure.
So, I think at the end of the day, you hire them to do a job, they got to do that job. Right?
Oh.
And so that's a big part of what I want those guys to be able to do. And, I'll be honest with you, football's football, right? I mean, everybody's going to run inside zone, power counter. Everybody's going to run four verticals. Everybody's going to run some type of 3-level pass. I mean, they're all the same, right? Everybody does it.
I mean, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean,
some do it better than others and some do it more than others, right? But at the end
sure.
of the day, there's only so many plays. And the same with defense, right? It's still about fundamentals. It's still about taking the time. In this age, it's got to be simple. You're getting new players every year. It has to be simple so they can go out there and play. And if it's too complicated, no matter how talented they are, it hurts them. And they don't play as fast. They don't play as confident.
We're talking with Coach Tim Beck, head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. So I think we've gone back and forth with this where you weren't calling plays and you were calling plays. It sounds like you're going to let your new offensive coordinator call the plays this year. I guess that's what I'm hearing.
And it was interesting when I made the change and took over. I did it for one game, Troy. So that was the only game I really did it. At the end of the day, it became we didn't play as well defensively, and I just felt like there was some things that within the team that took me away from being the head coach, right? And so, I had staff members kind of put plans together, and I helped. I'd be involved a little bit to sit down and say, here's what I see, here's what I think might work. But at the end of the day, Coach Proctor, Coach Wareheim, and staff, some of the O-line and our passing game coordinator, run game coordinator, relied heavily on them during the course of the season towards the end, and which allowed me to kind of bring our team back together, right? Because a couple of devastating losses at times, and they needed that, and short weeks. I know we played a short week game. We had to turn around, and so there was just a lot of things that came in at the end of the day. Probably if I was more veteran of a coach or had been in the program longer and things were more settled, it might have been an easier transition to do, but I learned that it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be.
Well, we heard from Ricky Ronnie, one of the things that changed this year, there's not going to be a short week, that you don't have to play a weekday game. You'll have an off week. So you'll have 10 days if you have a weekday game this year. You guys, he says that all the coaches love that.
Love it. I think it's great. That was, we had at Troy and then turn around and come back and had to play App State, So, and that was, but we played well in the second game, right? When I backed out of it a little bit and was able to try to get, just be around the whole team again. And we needed it. It was Troy beat us down there, and it was kind of a devastating loss for us in terms of, Troy's a good football team, and you got to go on the road to go play them. You knew it was going to be hard, and the record was deceiving, right? And so, but we didn't handle it well, and so I think that was a big part of me getting back to doing head coach stuff, right? And we beat App, and it went well, and honestly played, pretty well. Had opportunities against Marshall and Lafayette and some people like that later in the season too.
Let's take a time out. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Tim Beck. He talks about the quarterback battle for the starting role and when he plans on making a decision who's going to get the starting nod. But first, let me tell you about Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops, and Avowed, and as easily as you stream your favorite TV shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Endless entertainment with 4K streaming. Watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Tim Beck, talking about the battle for the Chanticleers starting quarterback. All right, we're talking with Coach Tim Beck, head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Where are we quarterback-wise?
Yeah, we got 4. They're all battling right now. The veteran, Tad Hudson, who was with us last year and started in the bowl game. Tad's one of our guys that's competing. We got Samari Collier. Samari transferred in from Hudson Junior College. Very talented young man, strong arm, had a good spring. We have Emmett Brown. Emmett transferred in from San Jose State. Been in this system, understands it, has done a really good job in the spring. And you have MJ Morris, and MJ came from Maryland, and MJ was with me at North Carolina State. I recruited MJ at North Carolina State, where he played as a true freshman in a couple of ball games. So all competitive guys, all can spin it around pretty good, all grasped the offense, and had pretty good. I think in 15 days, it's hard to sit there and say, this guy's better than everybody else, and this guy's a starter and he's not. You see some signs, but again, it's, guy may have 2 good days and day 3 he's not as good as the other 2, right? And so that's a healthy competition to be able to have. And every year, almost every quarterback, you got to have a good backup, because they're always needed, and so I feel good about that position.
Well, it's important that always it's the coach that says, it's not so much having those good days, it's what you do after the bad day. It's coming back after the bad day. We don't mind having a bad day, but we want to have that good day after the bad day. Well,
you gotta
because the bad days are going to happen.
You got to damage control the bad days, though.
Sure,
it can't be awful days.
Right? We don't want that either.
You could have a bad day or a bad couple of plays, but you can't just keep turning the ball over and things of that nature.
So let's talk a little bit about Tad Hudson, because he was kind of thrown into the fire, right? I don't think he played at all last year, and all of a sudden he's thrown into the bowl game, and he took all the responsibility for not playing well last year in the bowl game. He's like, I should have played better. And it was like, hey, dude, you didn't play at all last year. And he's like, well, I had time to prep. I was playing in the bowl game. I should have played better. For a guy who didn't play at all last year, he was a stand-up kind of guy after the bowl game. Taking those questions. Being the quarterback, that's being a leader, but I thought that was pretty impressive for a guy who, didn't play at all last year, took the brunt of the responsibility when maybe it wasn't his fault.
That's what I love about Tad.
Yeah.
His teammates love about him. He took all that, and he shouldn't have, but he did. It's just who he is. And yeah, he really, and even the year before at North Carolina, he was redshirted. So he hasn't played football since high school. 2 years, really being in a competitive game, taking snaps. So I was really proud of him. I thought he went in there and played his tail off, man. He really did. But I like what he's done. And again, we just got a good group. I really like this group. It's a different group. We've done some things to, continue to build our team and try to build culture, as best you can.
All right, so and we're talking with Coach Tim Beck, head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. So you bring in the new coaches, you got the quarterbacks. How do the new coaches work with the quarterbacks in terms of their schemes? Do they say, hey, are you comfortable with this play? Or do they run the plays and say, you know what, that works, you know what, that doesn't? How do we go about doing that?
I think what happens, you install. It's like you just throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks initially,
Sure.
right? And then from there, you continue to get them better at the things they're good at. You continue to work to improve the things they're not good at, and then again, at the end of the day, you'll find what's good for them, right? It's like a pitcher in baseball, right? You may have a guy that you get, a young pitcher or whatever, and he can throw a fastball, curveball, slider, change up, whatever. And he practices all those pitches and you see all those pitches. But at the end of the day, he might really be a fastball, curveball guy. Right. And that's what you're going to end up going to at the end. But you're still working on the changeup. You're still working on the slider. You're still doing those type of things. So that's kind of where we're at.
All right. I'm sure I've asked you this before, but I'll ask it again just to let people know. When do you like having the starting quarterback name? Not when you tell me or when the media finds out. When do you, as the head coach, like to have it? Like, are you going to tell the players before the fall practice, or is it going to be a couple weeks? Do you like to go a weekend? When do you, outside of, we know before the fall practice starts, obviously that would be the best time to have it.
Yeah.
But when do you like to have that done?
Honestly, it's kind of a trick question because when it's time, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
so now you're going to tell me the players determine who the starter is.
No, it's more or less like it's time. Like there's either a clear-cut guy or getting close where we got to put somebody in the reins and
so that's usually 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks out.
At least 2 weeks.
At least.
Obviously the sooner the better.
Right.
But you can't rush the decision because there's so many variables that you can't practice, right? Because you don't hit guys, they don't get tackled. There's so many things that the quarterbacks don't usually go through. So you got to look back a little bit and you got to see what have they done in the past. How successful have they been? As we recruited these guys, we looked to see what they were good at and what they weren't. And so we get a little bit of that off of the previous films as we watch them as well.
Talking to Coach Tim Beck, Locked On Sunbelt, your team's everyday head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. We're talking offense. What's the change of the scheme defensively?
Yeah, it's not going to give too much away.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I asked that question. I'm like, he's not going to answer that.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I figured you'd ask it, and but yeah,
you got to hold something back.
Yeah, no doubt. It's different than what we ran for certain. I'll say that.
And so, how long is it? Does it take longer to learn an offense, or does it take longer to learn the defense, putting the different players in? They always say defense is easier than offense, right? That the defense comes before the offense. I presume there's more moving parts of offense, but I don't know if that's necessarily true.
I would say here's what's interesting, right? Probably learning offense sometimes, like again, everybody runs 4 verticals, right? Everybody runs outside zone, inside zone.
Yes.
It's just named different, right?
Sure.
So you just have the word association to what I'm supposed to do by the play. That's not usually as hard for some players as defensively, because now there actually truly is different styles of defense than there is offense, right? A slant is a slant. It's 3 steps, went inside, right? There might be some different angles and some different release techniques, but you might play cover 2 and hadn't played cover 2 before. And so now you got to play it, and it's a unique coverage. But why is defense usually ahead of the offense? Because once the ball is snapped and they see the ball, just that's their goal, right? See ball, get ball. Like they just run to get it, right? So that's more natural instinct to run to go get the football and tackle the guy. So effort, technique, and things of that nature. But the effort part is really, really big defensively, is getting off blocks, running to the ball, have a bunch of hats to the ball. That doesn't require any scheme. It just requires guts and instinct. And so that's why sometimes defense can be ahead of offense. And they don't do as much usually. Most teams won't do as much defense as they do offense.
Right. And then their goal is just to stop the ball, right? Whether that's to knock it down or to tackle the player.
But individually, like an individual player, sometimes offense might be actually easier to learn. Because the other thing too is like if you're a running back, you're like, okay, the ball's coming to me. I got to know what I'm doing, right? I'm getting the ball on this play. So it's easier for me to know it because I'm getting it. Or if you're like a safety, you don't know what's going to happen, run, pass, or whatever. I got to read this guy. He's going to tell me what to do. But so that's why I mean, individually, sometimes it's easier on offense, but as a unit, and once you get everything situated, probably defensively is easier.
As just someone who watches it on TV, and obviously I have no idea what's coming, it's amazing to me when the quarterback is yelling at a certain player who's lined up in the wrong spot, and he's got to go all the way to the other side of the field. Like, well, how does he know what play's coming? Because he was lining up all the way wide out to the right, but now he's in the slot to the left. How does he possibly know what play to run?
Yeah. Well, they're probably telling him as they're moving them.
Oh, okay.
Right. They're doing that. They're moving them over from one side to the other.
Or one of the other wide receivers is telling.
Yeah. We're running, but so-and-so. And they run over there, and so they know.
Let's take one more time out. When we come back, we'll wrap up our conversation with the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Tim Beck. Talks about trying to build a program in this era of the transfer portal. Talks about the expectations for 2025, and he talks about what it was like attending a sporting event, a big sporting event, the sold-out baseball game and victory for Coastal Carolina against Clemson earlier in the week. I'll do that right after we talk about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's wrap up our conversation with the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Tim Beck. Talks about the difficulty and the challenges of trying to build a program in the era of the transfer portal. Talks about the expectations for 2025 and what it was like to attend a sporting event as a fan, and it was quite the sporting event. Coastal Carolina's 5-3 victory over Clemson earlier in the week. Talking to Coach Tim Beck, head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. All right, so you're doing this now. This is year 3. Like you said, maybe the advantages of the other guys who've been head coaches for so long, those advantages are gone because now everybody is in the same boat with the transfer portal and the NIL. What have you learned about trying to build a program in the transfer portal era?
Yeah, it's a tough one because you never know who you got. You never know who's going to leave, when they're going to leave, what's going to cause them to leave. You're dealing with 18 to 20, 2-year-olds.
Maybe right? 25-year-olds.
Some are 25.
Yeah.
Where professionally, when you're talking contracts, money, incentives, bonuses, or whatever it may be, when you talk about that, they're adults usually, and I don't know how you define adults.
Right.
So I was told one time, you're adult when you're done going to school, you become an adult. When just like insurance, right? If your kids are going to school, they could be on your insurance. The minute they are done with school and they hit a certain age, they're adults all of a sudden because they're not in school and they hit an age. So sometimes people, in the NFL or whatever, they consider themselves maybe more mature to make those decisions. I don't know how 1 year can make that difference, but I guess it does. But, you're just dealing with a bunch of guys that they're trying to find a good place for themselves. They're trying to find a good home. They're trying to find a good situation. And I respect that. I think it's everybody's right to have that opportunity to do that. building a program, it's hard. You want to try to build it from the ground up. You want to have good high school players because you still want to try to develop them. And there's a lot of really good high school players out there that are being overlooked at times, and we know that. And you're trying to recruit those guys if you can. And then you use the transfer portal to fill spots vacated by guys who leave to go in the transfer portal typically, right? So if you lose a junior defensive lineman or whatever, you're trying to replace him with an older defensive lineman that's played in some games. You can't keep replacing older players with younger players, inexperienced players, because then you're going to have a terribly inexperienced team, number one. And then number two, as those guys continue to get older, if they play when they're young and they get older, they get poached anyways. And so you're going to lose them at the end. So, it's just, there's a lot to it. There really is, from getting a player to even on a visit, between, transcripts, getting all their transcripts, getting academically admitted in the school, having their progress towards degree so they're eligible to be able to participate at the next level, getting them, having them like it. Do they fit? What's their rev share, NIL, whatever it is. So the days of recruiting players, relationships, facilities at one point, that time used to take to really get to know them isn't quite as important as it used to be. Where you play, those type of things, they're not quite as important as what can they gain from coming now.
Can you recruit somebody expecting them to be there more than 1 year? I mean, we had a bunch of talented guys, and I didn't want to talk about it on the podcast because I didn't want to speak it into existence, but you could see it coming, right? Fluff Bothwell was splitting time and leading the conference in touchdowns for South Alabama, the running back. Ahmad Hardy had a ridiculous season rushing the ball for ULM. And Gio Lopez was staying at South Alabama until a guy named Bill Belichick came along, offering him $2 million per year for 2 years, right? And so you can't expect these guys to stick around when that kind of money is going. I mean, Ahmad Hardy went from ULM to Missouri.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know if you can expect. As a coach, I don't know if I would hope that they would stay for more than a year, but I don't know if I would necessarily expect that.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, you really don't, especially when they have a good year like that, like
Right.
those guys did. Those guys had tremendous years and they're tremendous players and they deserve what they get.
Sure.
At the end of the day, I mean, I tell our guys it's no different. If Ohio State called and offered me a head coaching job, I'm gone. Like, what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like that's real, right? And so they have the same right to do that.
Right.
And I think they're starting to figure out. I think some of these players are starting to figure out to come maybe to our Group of Five level to play and be a dominating all conference type player,
Right?
Because that's what the Power Fives are looking at first, and they're grabbing those guys and they're paying good money to those guys.
Do you show the NFL draft and show all the G5 guys who get drafted, and that you can get to the NFL through the G5?
Oh yeah, you do. You constantly show them those things. It's just it's a unique individual, right? He's looking for playing time. He's looking to find the love of football again, right? It's not as business driven, and that, hey, while I'm doing this, I can get a degree and make a little money, right? So if you find that type of guy, those are the guys that thrive at our level, to be honest with you. They just love playing football. And so, but there's guys that certainly are going to transfer and come into some school knowing, hey man, they're hired mercenaries. They're coming in for 6 months to play the season and they're out.
I mean, the way it is, Coach, I mean, I'm not one of those guys that think you necessarily have to move all the time. But, I mean, the way it is now, and, you could finish a law degree and have some cash in the bank. And all of a sudden you're putting down a down payment on a house and making six figures. And you've had a nice college career and you don't owe a dime.
Yeah.
If somehow you can manage to play college football and go to law school at the same time, that's
no doubt.
Probably not quite as easy as I'm making it out to be.
No, I mean, you start to do, like I said, football's just different. You start to do now, like our off season, we had financial advisors come in and teach them how to do budgets, teach them how to invest. What is an investment? What are they? Because they're making money now, and what do they do? They just buy shoes. Like they can't just buy shoes. Like they got to start figuring out about real estate and what are taxes and, all these type of things. So you went from teaching them how to tackle to teaching them how to balance, do checkbooks and things of this nature, right?
What an interest rate is on a credit card.
Correct. Right. How do you check your credit rating? All those type of things. So it just, and again, it's all part of it. Like everybody's probably doing the same things, but it changes football. That's why it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Got to keep football simple. You got to keep it simple.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's wrap things up with the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, Tim Beck. He's locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. What are the expectations for 2025? Because the defending champion coach and the defending champion quarterback moved divisions, and 15 players from the Marshall Thundering Herd, the defending champs, moved to Southern Miss. Jalen Rayner, big-time quarterback, third year. You don't see that very often. Same coach, same quarterback for 3 years over there at Arkansas State. Seems to be a little bit wide open in the East. What are your expectations heading into year 3 at Coastal Carolina?
Obviously, we're competing for championships, right? Every day. That's the goal. That's why you come to Coastal Carolina, to play and to compete for championships, not just in football, but all sports. And so I like our team. I like our chemistry and continuity that we've been able to develop over the past 4 or 5 months. I think we have a talented group, a hungry group. I think our football team is hungry. I think by no means the way we finished the season last year was indicative of our team and who we were and how we were. Like everybody that you talk to, probably, that you got to stay healthy, right? That's going to be a big part of the season.
Yeah.
We have a very challenging schedule. Looking forward to the opportunity to play, at Virginia and East Carolina and South Carolina this year as non-conference opponents. So we're excited, I think, and then hopefully those programs get us ready for a very tough Sun Belt, very competitive, very even keel. Like you said, I think, I know Coach Gibby at Marshall will have those guys ready. I was with Gibby at NC State for 3 years. He's a tremendous coach, and James Madison and Georgia Southern, they're always, App's got a new coach, and Rainey does a great job. I mean, you got to come.
I know for Del McGee and Georgia State.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and certainly I don't want to forget any of those guys, because every time you go to play, you got to come to play. And it's the beautiful thing about our conference, right? That's what makes us and our conference so awesome, is the competitive games every single week, no matter if you're playing crossover games, interdivisional games, it doesn't matter, even non-conference games. And there's a lot of talent, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more talent again this year, just like it was last year.
All right, one place that Coastal Carolina definitely has some talent is on that diamond. How about the Chanticleers win over Clemson 5-3 the other night? Springs Brooks Stadium packed 5,300. Were you there?
Oh yeah. I love what those guys are doing, man. Coach Snall's done a tremendous job. Our fan base is awesome. I mean, they packed the Palace, and it was a great venue. I mean, just, for a little bit, you got to be a fan of college athletics, right? For just a small inkling, we didn't have any recruits in that night. Nice. So I got a chance to go over and watch the game. And boy, I tell you, all the fans showing up, and it was a beautiful night for baseball. And our guys played really well. He's done a great job. And our softball program's doing really well this year, our golf team. So I'm really proud of all the sports here at Coastals. That's why I said at the beginning, what's the expectation is to win championships, like all of our programs are trying to do.
All right, I got to ask, did you win a little bit at the blackjack table? Because it sounds like you're playing with some chips there.
No, not at all.
What's on the desk? What are you fumbling with on the desk? Because it
This
sounds
thing
like
keeps falling over on I don't want it to hit and not.
Oh, okay. All right. sounded like blackjack chips.
No.
He's Coach Tim Beck. He's the head coach of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Always appreciate your time. Hopefully we'll catch up during they call it fall practice, but it's in the middle of August and it's hot. It's nothing like fall. It's really hot and humid in South Carolina. Hopefully we'll catch up during that before the season kicks off. Really appreciate your time, Coach. Thank you so much.
And will you be in New Orleans again, right? Do you go to New Orleans?
I may try to be in New Orleans. That's not a bad idea. I may try to be there, but we're hanging out in Bourbon Country these days. So if you recruit in Kentucky, come visit me in Bourbon Country.
You keep saying I'm going to have to try to. We don't get on the road quite as much anymore as we used to.
Well, your guy Bob Chesney is playing in Louisville this year.
Oh, they play Louisville?
Yeah.
That'll be a good one.
Yeah, it should be. I will hopefully be able to attend the game. No.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you, Dave.
Appreciate you, Coach. Thank you so much. All the best this year, man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.